So now I can say good afternoon. It's exactly at noon. And we are opening actually the last meeting composer with such amazing artists. I'm happy that here in Austria Forum of Culture, we have Bára Gísladóttir. I think that I'm a little bit confused because I still have this incredible sounds from last evening in my head. So this really not disturbing me, but let me stay in this music that we heard last evening. Thank you for being with us, Bára. Thank you so much.
Thank you for reminding me.
And on the screen, you can see with us the last piece. I think because you're working about something new, I'm sure, and we're gonna be waiting for the music by you in the future. But this is one of the last work of you. And yesterday, Warsaw Autumn audience could listen this incredible, amazing piece, "Animals of Your Pasture." So let's say at the beginning, I'm staying with this hope that we can see and hear the animals' voices, as you describe in your piece, because this sometimes sounds more like a human voices also. I mean, we want to be with the volume, work with dynamic, and I'm staying in this hope that finally we can hear animals also crying, screaming, and talking to us, sometimes waiting for our help. So that's how I recognize your piece yesterday. Really very touching. So let's start with this, with the new piece. Can you tell us a little bit more about the idea, inspiration, and what we have in the score? Because as I know now, the score is also partly using improvisation, but it's like control improvisation. It's not very open, yeah? Okay, so it's time for you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the piece deals with the idea of that we are allowed to follow a flock of animals, and that we can follow them and see them from different views and angles on very various occasions, as in dancing, fighting, running around. And I always saw them as a flock running across continents and the whole planet, sort of, so that we see them in very various and different conditions, so to speak. And this thought is woven with the idea or even wish, where chaos is allowed to be chaos without us interfering or controlling.
Talking about the theory of chaos, which I found very interesting, and it's a long list of books about this. It's also in order. The chaos is in some order, mathematical order, or for us non-logic order. But there is an order in this chaos, so that's also interesting. So what we have in the score here, let's look, because I see that we have the young students also with us today. And definitely they are interesting about what is behind this, what we heard, and inside of the score. So is here on the left is like scenes, they are or reactions of the animals here, what we can see. This is the movements for aha.
Yes.
Okay, so there are the movements, and it's a little story also, as you can see. That's what you said. The long list of instruments, especially for the percussionist. And one thing that I found, I think it's interesting for you to put together the wind instruments, especially flute, clarinet, yes, oboe, and especially bass clarinet, or the lower, let's say lower version of flute together to hear the bass sound, which is so rich, as also we were talking about this today before. They are very rich. The ground is so deep, let's say, and the lowest sound, but the whole spectrum, it's so interesting. And you took this together as a complex with percussion instruments. And the same spectrum they can give us also, the percussion instruments. So, yeah. Is this like in your musical research also interesting?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I'm a double bassist and I'm interested in the lower register, of course. And I wanted the piece to boast of a certain core, and I wanted it to be quite dark, and therefore the low register of instruments also, yeah.
Because before I asked Bára about double bass and her being a double bass player, if this was since the very beginning, but you told me that first was the violin. So we have like the highest register of the string instruments, and then we went back to the ground, to the very low spectrum of sounds. And I think that now you have the whole spectrum of the string instrument sounds, which is very beautiful. Is this like the beginning for you to create also the piece, to analyze this perspective from the lowest and the highest sounds?
Not consciously.
Not consciously. Okay. Okay. So, and let's here see the explanation, general. Okay.
So this is the explanations for the improvisation, no?
Improvisation.
And they are very much built on, I don't know if it says so exactly here. They should be entirely built on the material happening just before these bars. Yeah? So we shouldn't have any new aspects of material, but we should play with the texture of these aspects.
Very interesting.
And dynamics, obviously.
And here is just this what we can find in the score, yes? How you want them to exactly create the sound.
Yeah, and this, of course, required a lot of work on the floor with the ensemble. And I don't think I would have allowed myself to write something like this if I hadn't known that we would be workshopping the piece together. So I've been working with Riot for some years, and I know them personally, and this plays a huge part in the way the piece is written. So I know that I'm writing for Philip the oboist, for example, and so on. And this, of course, influences the work, and the trust that you have in the ensemble. This is of great value.
So it's like everyone meeting with the musicians is it's an opportunity, but this also change us, yeah, the vision of this.
For sure, and just to get deeper into all these factors, you know. So we spent a whole week together working on it.
Okay, so let's see here. Still, we have explanations for the instrumentalist. Yes. Yeah. That's what you can see here. Can we find in the score some special notation, or like created by you, and you tried this during the workshop with the musicians? Because as we know, and since I think tens of years now, we have mostly the situation. The composer is working with the instrumentalist, and they changing all the time the notation in the score. And did you try something that is already, easier to find in other scores, or you figure out that you can make it in your own way?
Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that, actually. The notation did not change after I had workshopped with the group.
Ah, great.
So this is basically what it looked like. And then we just got deeper into the ideas of these sounds. We had to work a lot on the improvisation, for example. Yeah.
Definitely.
Because I had a very firm idea of what I wanted with it, but I didn't want... neither did I want to fully notate it, because I wanted it to feel vivid also for the players.
Okay, with a piece with title like this, is it important to work with musicians also, including some instruction or rules, or make them improvise, including not only the vision of the musical material, but also more like actor. You think that did you use this or not? It was more only musical material, more
musical material, but with explanations.
Explanation.
Just a conversation, and very much back and forth. What would work for them? They came with ideas and so on. So, yeah, but I don't think. Well, yeah, the percussion part may have been the part that changed the most because we added an instrument and so on. So in that case, it's not entirely true that it was ready when I arrived with it. But I had a very strong idea of form behind the piece, and it helped a lot. And for me in general, I have a lot of movements in pieces that are played through continuously. So I'm not sure if they have a huge meaning for the audience, because you can't really maybe recognize a strong difference. In that sense, it's not like, this is this aspect of the piece and this is this. It's a slow development. And it's more for myself and the musicians, I would say. So all these undertitles that you saw are very much, I feel like it's a rope I hold on to, because most of the time I have decided the names, both titles and subtitles, before I write the piece,
Okay. That's why I ask you about the improvisation part, because I thought that if we're talking about the structure and form, it's really strong, and it's like you're really a leader in this. You know exactly where this, the going through one movement to the other, from one space to the other. It's written in the score, but I thought that maybe there are some parts of improvisation. So it's perfect. It's really very good. It's nice to recognize those as a part of your technique, we can say now, of working, which is very interesting. Should we see some special places in the score? Yeah. Okay, it's still here. It's the opening of the. It's the beginning of the piece.
Should maybe be noted that there are electronics in the piece, live electronics, so connected to the electric guitar and the harpsichord. So they play a huge part in the soundscape, but they should not be as an additional factor, but more as an extension of the soundscape, something that really embraces the ensemble.
Okay. I think that the score is very interesting to study together, but we don't have the recording actually right now. Yeah,
Unfortunately, yeah.
Okay. So we can see really like a hot score right now here with us. But we have also other score of your pieces, of last of the pieces, and we have recording also to this. So I think it's going to be also interesting to talk about this. And my next question is, and my question was until right now like that, because I found also that visual part is interesting for you, and this wonderful word that you use already, soundscape. It's is this term soundscape also good recognizable by you, like the inspiration coming also from other composers or other persons working with this subject, or not really? Or this is your research?
Yeah, I think that most of the time I just get a very strong idea that is not very musical, maybe to start with. So I can't say that I am deliberately under the influence of some, but I think it's also impossible not to be influenced by your surroundings. So I am, of course, but I feel independent in the way of how I work with my ideas. But maybe that's a misunderstanding, because you're a bit blind to this. I think all of us.
Yeah, because I found in your music what interests me most is that you don't exactly put in questions and answer, like, going back to the classical thinking about music. but also you're just like an observer, you're a watcher. You give us the truth about the sound, because it's about, even if in your title there are a lot of interesting subjects or places that you want to catch, at least in the title. So this means that you're looking and you listen this place, and this goes simultaneously. So you're watching something and you hear the same space. It's like an eye and the ear together working. And the sounds, it's going through the even morphology changes inside. So there's the attack, and then we don't know where to go with the sounds that you're creating. And so there is no answer. So you're still watching what's going to be. Maybe the sound is going to go with you, with us, to unexpected way.
And preferably you don't necessarily hear where it's coming from. This I find very interesting in sound in general, and I'm not entirely sure what's coming from where and what is triggering which electronic effect and so on.
Okay, so let's go to video now. Okay, and let's listen some music. This is a work that it's published in 2020. Yes. Okay, and here is the score. And the score looks very interesting. So here, look. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit more about this idea also, and the inspiration? And it's a long piece, 1 hour piece. Is this like the greatest piece for you right now, like your opus vitae for right now, you can say, or no? It was just in this moment was important work for you.
Yeah, I feel it's quite an important work for me, because it's maybe the first work where I went along with my urge, so to speak, to work with a longer format, and yeah, with this unity within sound, where I was sort of allowed to go all the way. Yeah, so it's actually my graduation piece from my postgraduate diploma from the Royal Danish Academy of Music. So I was allowed to do whatever I wanted in this sense.
Great.
And this, of course, gave great freedom and possibility. And the piece is called viddir, which means it can both mean dimensions, but it can also mean great widths of landscape. It's also used for this like flat landscape often. Yeah, so I wanted to combine these two meanings of the word, sort of, and try to approach the music in every possible aspect from these meanings, where the idea and the goal was to really create something that where all the different instruments met as an organism on its own, one and with one voice and just complete unity. Yeah.
Okay, so let's listen. So you prefer from the beginning? Yeah. Okay. Okay. As you can see again, it's a long list of percussion instruments, but also bass flutes, alto flutes. I really like how you use them, especially the bass flute and alto flute, and it's in several pieces. Yes, it's wind instruments and plus electronics or percussion instruments. And yeah, here is the beginning.
And just to, this score has not entirely been updated, so actually it's all the flutes together at the beginning, not only the bass flutes. That's what we hear in this recording, at least.
Okay.
Not so fast.
Yeah, sorry. It's much like maybe like this. Mm-hmm.
Is it possible to turn up, you think?
Oh, sorry, I'm lost. Are we still here? I'm lost. Sorry.
Now we can turn.
Okay. Thank you.
No worries. We're just getting to this point. Organ.
That's what I wanted to say actually now. If you have any question, please join this discussion with us. Microphone, Julia. Microphone.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, how is this sound produced? Because it sounds magical, and I thought it was like piccolo, flute, and harmonics, but you say it's organ. How? What's the technique?
So throughout the piece, this sound comes again and again, and it's a mixture of organ most of the time and the whistle tones on the flute. And the organ sounds is produced by pulling out stems so that we never have the clear organ sound. So if it's just a regular chamber organ, so if you just pull it halfway through, and they have the instructions to pull back and forth and create almost like this distorted synth sound by this. Thank you.
Really amazing. It's fantastic. I love, the instruction in the score, like as strong as the technique allows. That's a challenge.
Oh, well, yeah, because the whistle tones and the flute, they don't allow for, and I never know really, this is one of the challenges in notation, is that what do you write? Do you write as strong as that certain effect allows? I mean, you can't write fortissimo because it's never going to sound fortissimo. So I think a lot of people deal with these sort of questions, and I like to do it this way, so it's quite clear that what you want is just, and anyway, that it's there are not many players that can really control the dynamics of whistle tones anyway. So it's sort of a one dynamic thing, yeah.
So it's a challenge because every time this can sound different.
Totally, yeah. And you can also hear when I bring whistle tones to orchestras, the general tendency is to really keep the 2 octaves higher, so that you just have the fundamental, and it's to not. Although I always write, please flutter freely between frequencies, but you have to ask for it specifically, because it seems so stable the way it's written. So it could be more helpful to write a little soaring line above, for example. To make it even clearer.
When did it happen that you found wind instruments so interesting to compose? Because you're basically in the string instrument, dedicated to string instrument, and then with like natural process. Because I also found some interesting text by you, and it's about Sciarrino.
Yeah,
he's an important composer for you. Yes,
very much
somehow.
so. Yeah. And especially with this contemporary introduction to the flute.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was like a natural process, just to include also string instruments plus electronic and plus wind. Yeah.
There are no electronics in this piece,
Electronics.
but it's quite. It's also what I find quite interesting with a lot of woodwind instruments is that you can really create with harmonics and string instruments, and for example whistle tones or other air effects on the winds. That you can really create a merging soundscape here, where you cannot identify what comes from where.
That's what I thought. So I found that really the not only sound, but just the scape, landscape also. It's so interesting and inspiring for you, important. And really you can't recognize the sound. Where is this coming from? And the same if we have string instruments and wind instruments, sometimes also you can't really figure out the difference, because violin or double bass can really breathe. And it's beautiful, and it's maybe not so important for the classical style, but for the contemporary music, it's fantastic actually to play with those sounds. Okay, so please join us to this discussion. If you have any questions, be open with this, because I think we have such an interesting, beautiful music here.
So brief, maybe question for that piece. What was your plan for audience mental state during the whole hour? Because it sounds today is incredible that some piece may long hour. Did you plan that, or how did you manage that? What's your plan to?
I must say it was quite intuitive. I didn't really set up with a structure or plan. But of course, I had this idea that I wanted to approach this as fully as I could, meaning that I wanted to enter all these different approaches, all these different dimensions. Does each dimension have a representative, and so on? So I had a lot of questions, and it really helped me going through the piece, because unlike many of my pieces, I didn't have any subtitles here, or I didn't have any titles to hold on to, as I said earlier, to use as a rope. It was just this idea of a great landscape, and that we would just be in this landscape. And I don't think it really, of course, you can divide the piece into different sections, because there is the flute sections, and the flutes are surrounded by the audience, creating sort of a surrounding soundscape. In fact, this, of course, we don't hear in the recording. And then the two basses, me on the double bass, and my friend Skúli Sverrisson, who plays electric bass. We're sitting almost, we're just at the front, at the side, and then the whole percussion department is behind us, because it takes a lot of space, obviously. So there was the idea of sound traveling from the front to the back, and the audience is seated in a traditional way, like we are here. And then, of course, because the piece is, I don't think I mentioned this, but the piece is specifically written for a church in Copenhagen, which has a 9-second reverb. Of course, and the piece was really written with this in mind, and it was always affecting the process. So maybe that was my only plan, maybe, that I knew that we would send something out and that we would have a response. But of course, when people came in, this time shortened, and the piece was slightly shorter. And I remember during the premiere, I thought it affected it more than I had expected or wanted to. And then I remember we made up for it by a bit longer improvisations on the basses. So not only does this sound travel in from a surround system or front, but of course also because of this amazing building, Krongelskirche, that has these incredible ceilings. And I also wanted the flautists to be placed in a way that the sound would... goes up to the ceilings and back to us. So it's a really special, I would say this piece is a concert experience for sure. It's great to have a beautiful recording. I'm very happy about that because it's very, very challenging to record something in a big room like this. The recording we hear is from Hallgrímskirkja, which is in Reykjavik, and it is the sister church to the Danish church. They are really, really similar. And that was therefore chosen for this performance.
Great. That's what I want to also ask you about, because I think, I don't know what you think, especially younger audience here, we're living in the time that we'd like to record everything. We need recordings. And I think that you also, younger composers, you are a generation who the first moment when you can listen the music, it's recordings. Before even you're gonna see the score. So I think like I was the same in somehow, as far as I remember, when first moment when I could listen the music, it was only the recording and no score, and then it's completely different than the older generation had.
Like Mahler. Like Berlioz, oh my God.
Yeah. But I think that it's also a huge challenge, as you said, to find a good space and good system to record this, because it's that I'm waiting for the recording from last evening, but I think I'm so happy that I could join this music in real. I could feel like being a violin or being a double bass, because I could feel them, from my foot until my head, the whole music, the whole vibrato, the air, the dynamic, the volume in my body. So this sometimes what we can lose in the recordings, yeah?
Certainly, and for me personally, the concert experience is the most important thing of music, and everything that comes before that, because that doesn't happen on its own. You need to be in contact, in conversation, in collaboration for this all to happen. So this is very valuable, and I enjoy electronic music a lot actually, and different genres of. I really like rave music and hip hop music, and things that are maybe friendlier in a recorded format. That the recording is often better than going to a concert, I feel. It feels tighter for a lot of electronic music, at least. But this music, I feel, is alive, and it changes because when we go into a different space and we don't know the resonance of this space, the length of the piece simply changes. So it could become much shorter or even longer if we go into a more reverberant space. And this idea I really like, that sound is something alive.
Yes, that's true. I was thinking about electronic music and the electronic part, because maybe this was because of the old-fashioned software, hardware, that we couldn't see the difference between instrument and recorded sound or electronic part just coming from the program, the computer, the synthesizer. And now I think that we can choose the music material be so similar and sounds almost the same, that we're losing this, old-fashioned meaning that, this is electronic sound and this is synthesizer and this is the instrument. It's called mixture together. So I'm very happy also about this, that, now that the technology brings us this possibility, and also in the recordings, that it's like one soundscape or landscape that we can see and hear together. So that it doesn't need to be extreme in the electronic part. This can be something very easy just to listen, or the field recordings that we want to use. Yeah, it's also very, very interesting. Okay, so do we have more questions from you?
Okay, so I have a question. What's your not idea, but how are you composing? Did you spend more time with instrument, or you are just imagining that sound in your head? You just trying to connect the whole constant music in your head, or you are needs to hear the sound to your ears in real. What's your side?
I just imagine it and write it. So I never play anything or don't use piano. That wouldn't really work for this sound anyway.
So much time you spend, let's say, in music software or paper?
Paper.
Okay, you got perfect pitch, or it's just also a matter of practice, of imagination?
Anybody can do it. It's a matter of practice, certainly. So I think I don't actually. I haven't experienced writing something down and being surprised. It's never something entirely different than what I had in mind, you know.
So you not very often need to verify something that you heard in your head. You just write it down, and you know that it should sound like you just writing down, like you heard and just writing down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so talking about early music by you, because I asked Bára before is it possible, and think that it's natural and it's normal process that sometimes we make some vivisection or dissection of this what happened, and also I found this two words, this definitions interesting and corresponding with your music, because I think that. Today I've made for myself like vivisection of this what I heard yesterday, or something happened and then later we can recognize what really happened and analyze the process of or this what happened. Even if you include in improvisation, also it depends on physically or psychologically how the instruments react, what this instruction or the rules that you put them can be as a result on this evening. Like even if you put some extremes, you know, if the technique allows you to do something, but you know, question is in what specific feelings do I have in this moment when I'm playing? Yeah, this can be different, or sometimes we're dealing with some health problems and all of these things, and we still need to play. So every time it depends. And of course, the landscape or the soundscape is already changing. So it's beautiful, the nature coming together in your music with the sound in so natural way. That's really fantastic.
Yeah, it is the same thing to me. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're very open for a new meeting and for the music exist in this moment, in this way, including all the changes. And all the, it's always the developing something and an approach, and also it is kind of challenge that you're expecting maybe something different, but we here and now, and this is what the instrumental gave us actually. Is it?
I don't understand. I'm sorry.
Maybe I'm too far with my philosophy. I mean that, you know, every time when you're going, even with this, you know, with this score, and you have all this instruction in rules, you never know what kind of meeting is going to be. A new concert, new place, maybe it's church, maybe it's concert hall. And sometimes, you know, our musicians that we're working with feel that this is a challenge for them because of some physical and psychological aspects. And even if the technique really allows them to do something, they feel like border, you know, and this in this moment is impossible to play. So for you also, as a composer, it's a challenge, because it's never, you can't be sure that you're going to expect something that you put in the score. So that was my basic idea for this. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that you have to embrace some sort of flexibility.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's very hard if you have decided this is what it's going to be like always.
Exactly.
Then you're going to be very disappointed.
Disappointed. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I mean, I want and strive for a certain quality of sound, and I can be very frustrated if a PA isn't good, or so of course I have this feeling, and then that is not good. But when it comes to space itself and surroundings, it's where the player is sick, that is what it is, that is beyond control.
Yes. So yeah, talking about some early examples, I found this very interesting. Bára said that she's not going back to this anymore, but I found that for the idea of a composer being actually very young, yes, and creating the way to the landscape or the soundscape, I think that this is very interesting, and I found this beautiful because it's a score. It's a score, and you ask about also this technique aspects if you're working with the papers. So I think that you can find this online and watch, because I found this score really beautiful, and I would love to use this also for my students to work with them on the improvisation, because it's now here it looks like visual art, and then we're opening this. Here we have more information about the piece, and here, there you go. We have colors, we have text and musical text and notes also together. So for the workshop, I think, or sometimes for people who are not so familiar with improvisation, I think that this is really beautiful work.
Well, this is not improvisation, none of it. It's
I know.
very fully written.
Yeah. But also when you teach or you work with someone who's very familiar with the improvisation, it's very creative and very opening, I think. So what the colors means in this piece, if I can ask you? Is it like moods more or stylistic aspects? Aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's very individual how we find the colors.
And then I guess for me, A is red. I guess that's some A there, but I don't remember. It's so long since I wrote this. I haven't seen it for many years. In fact, I had forgotten about this piece until you brought it up. Maybe I had blocked it. I'm not sure. And then I guess this is something with C, but the yellow. But I'm not sure actually. And this is a piece that was written from my friend Bjarni Frímann, who's a fantastic conductor, pianist, violinist. He's a man that can do everything, and so it was very particularly written for him and his character, and he's also speaking. So there's a speaking part also for voice.
Great. I put this together, this piece, and Sherino, as we said, the instruments, the colors of the instruments, and some other aspects, and I thought maybe, and the soundscape, landscape, and I thought maybe it's a kind of synesthesia. I don't know if you feel this also, if this touched you somehow, yeah?
But I'm very shy to talk about this because I feel... yes, I am synesthetic, but I don't feel it is... I think it's just a different way of being, and it's not really like, I mean, you don't know anything else, and I'm not so aware of it until I start really thinking about it.
Okay. So... again, because I'm talking too much, I know. That's me. But it's time for your question, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about another technical aspect of your compositions, because I know that you're an improviser. So that really often influences the way a composer thinks about time in music, about the development of the material. My question to you is because, like you said in that piece, Vidir, that we saw, that was more intuitive writing. I wanted to ask you about the piece from yesterday. How much of planning, because you said that you had subtitles, so you already had subdivisions in your head, you had an idea. How much of your composition is a planned form, dramaturgically, we could say, when it comes to the tension, the release of the tension, and how much of it it's intuitive? And where do you think the sweet spot between these two lays?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you. I think that when I say intuitive, maybe my intuition is maybe a bit structured. Intuition can be very different. I think very much in form and structure. That is natural for me. And I think in that sense, for example, with Animals of Your Pasture, this is a piece that is where I really imagine something. Of course, I talk about these animals, but it's also, as most of my pieces are to me, before I start, I have to visualize them, and I often see them as some sort of a universe or planet of different texture. Is it oily? Is it liquid? Is there sand in between? Is it going around a sun, or like how is the movement of this creature? So this I think about a lot. I do not think in 7 minutes I shall have a rice or something. This I do not think. And of course there are exceptions to this as everything else. And for example, in my orchestra work, Vape, that is a very structural piece where I had decided everything. Who is playing what where. It's totally dependent on time. I took a certain situation from a past, just like a historical event, and compressed it into, and then everything was calculated. But this I don't enjoy so much.
Very interesting. Thank you so much, because I myself am studying composition, and I find myself looking for the sweet spot, because as you said, that was very interesting, that the intuition is also structured very often times, that you have an image in your head. And I was simply curious because I very much enjoyed your piece from yesterday. I very much liked the textures, the timbre, but I didn't understand the form. I was a bit lost in it. I was trying to understand where you were leading us, and I wasn't able to find myself. And my question maybe, was that intentional to simply create very immersive, because I love that you gave the time for the sections to develop, and the forte, when you have all the instruments playing and the textures changing, you let that vibrate, you let that you resonate. I love that. So my question would be, was that intentional, that you didn't want to lead anywhere, just to immerse, or was it just my perception of your piece?
No, it was my intention, so I'm happy it succeeded. But I think it comes from this idea or visualization as form as something maybe three-dimensional and not something linear from A to B.
That's very interesting. Please continue. Didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, talking about this intuition and the form and the structure, I was thinking about the instruments. I was really curious also about the instruments, because I'm sure that this, it's your imagination. But maybe sometimes you want to also work with the instrumentalist and to figure out what extremes you can get from the instruments. Yes, so it's not like we choosing the instruments right now and we 100% sure, or maybe you sure that this could be this instrument, or you changing also the instrument part. No,
it's
always not fixed.
Yeah, fixed. Yeah.
Great, fantastic. So it's fantastic imagination. I really admire.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say as well, because as you answered before, that you have, of course, it comes with practice and with a lot of workshop, but that you have a timbre in mind and you know how you want to transcribe it to instruments. That is a skill that is very important when you write music that is supposed to, be texturally different and evolving. That is a very, very, that was very impressive in the piece from Mr. A. And here what you played, the short excerpt also, that was audible, that you have that skill, and it's very, very impressive, to be honest.
Thank you very much. But I want to add that this is also something, this is because of a huge privilege, where you have the chance to work with people and musicians, and this comes from floor work, as I like to talk about it. It's not you sitting and just imagining and everything that surrounds us affects us, and I feel that I am, it's just a huge privilege to have been able to workshop with
Yes.
musicians that are really passionate and interested in what they are doing.
Bára, I have also a question. You still have a time to play double bass? I mean, in a group and some ensemble, and that other composer is writing a piece for you, because you feel the improvisation also. You feel free as in work with other composers. Is it still a space for this in your activity?
Yeah, I mean, it decreases and increases from time to time. So right now I don't have time so much, but hopefully next year will be more time. Yeah.
I think this is also interesting because there are other composers who force you maybe sometimes to do something. Yes, so it's interesting training actually. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I wanted to ask you regarding you being an instrumentalist. What was the order of the things that happened in your life when it comes to being an instrumentalist, being a composer? How did one evolve from the other, maybe?
Yeah, great. So I started out, as you mentioned, as a violinist, or played the violin as a kid. And then I stopped around 14 and took 3 years of break. And then
Understandable.
Yeah. It's a classical time. Yeah, classic time. I mean, but I to be honest, I don't really know how I went into composition. I had been playing the bass for a few years, and I felt that something was missing, in a sense. And I thought maybe I should try this, and I did. and then, of course, I feel, especially during my studies, then I was just always at school. I was when I look back, I guess I was quite hardworking and very ambitious as a student, very interested. And I think it was also due to my lack of knowledge and experience with composition at all, and after I started my master studies in Milan, I again felt that something was missing because I wasn't really playing anymore, and I felt that I was becoming institutional and I didn't enjoy it. And then I went back to playing more, and not only playing Bach, which was my go-to thing every day. I wasn't really playing so much contemporary music. And then I found a way sort of to combine these two elements, and their contemporary music and improvisation, came quite naturally.
So this sounds familiar.
It does.
I think a bit for all of us. Yes. So yeah. I think also, for this festival, Warsaw Autumn, the educational aspect is very important, and I think that it's also a part of experience for us in coming from this conversation. We should think about and going back to the word vivisection and dissection, we should think about some educational aspects also. But okay, going back to our wonderful guests today, still we have some questions from you.
Maybe going back to some technical questions for the first score. I'm thinking, what should be the balance between learning new grammar in piece, this whole description, what special sign means, and the whole other classical education, whole system of notation. Because I was trying to play some pieces, for example, Moszmańska Nazar, or even Agatha Zubel for piano, and I partly gave up on the learning the grammar for the piece, what the given sign means, and maybe the question would be, what's the learning curve of this?
I think it's a combination of this being included more in our general education. That is, that we have just more contemporary repertoire throughout our education as instrumentalists, and good explanations from the composers. Yeah.
So, because it was also interesting for me, I have the same. I'm not really much into playing contemporary music by myself. I really like playing Bach. Just get Bach producing fugues and play even side read. And you just said it was a natural process to accommodate to, as you said, to improvise and play some by yourself some pieces. And do you think that it's also because our education is constructed in that way that we are focused almost only in the classical repertoire? And
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Definitely. I think that if you could play this since you were 7 years old, it would be natural, like using language just. So then for composers it's so natural, but for the instrumentalists it's like learning new language, and also how to play with the instruments, how to recognize this instrument as something new, even if good recognizable by us before.
And maybe also the inclusion of composition much, much earlier, just as we start to play an instrument at 5-6 years old.
Absolutely,
Could be the
I agree.
same case.
Yeah.
I wanted to follow up on that educational aspect that you said, and including composition much earlier on. We spoke the other day after the Ad Libitum festival concert that we had, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, Wednesday. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we spoke about the lack of the possibility of even having improvisational lessons, because I think at the moment it's only Eurythmics that can have in secondary school improvisation. And I myself found myself in the situation where I applied to have extra lessons at the music school to have even the possibility of learning to improvise, because no other studies allow you. They don't have that in the program, and we both agreed that it's a very big loss, because it makes you that much less developed in the way of thinking of music, and I think it's a very big loss, because then instrumentalists not only have to learn a new musical language that very often they are prejudiced for, because they perceive it as weird, as unnecessary, because they've been trained in a certain way, but they also then are unable to create anything of their own. And I don't even mean composition per se as writing a piece, but creating something, just playing the instrument, improvisation just for themselves. And we agree that it's a very big loss, because we become very short-sighted in our musical education. And I wanted to ask you, what is the educational system in Iceland? Because that's where you studied at first, after going off to Milan and to Denmark, as you mentioned. Is there any possibility of developing improvisational or composing skills in Iceland? What is the musical educational system in your country?
I'm not an expert in this, because I haven't been in Iceland for 10 years or so. So maybe it has changed, but when I was living there, no. There was nothing like this. At least not like publicly or locally, or in local music schools like this. Of course, I think a lot of composers would be open to giving private lessons and so on, but I'm not sure how much you even think of that as a possibility or an opportunity if you are not introduced to the subject at all.
If you don't know what you're missing out on, how can you want to participate in it if you don't know of its existence? I understand. I have another question, but I want you to have the floor.
No, please. I'm always happy, very happy, because sometimes it's like, that I need to ask more questions, but you're doing this. The same question that I want to ask, so I'm so happy about this. It's your time with the composer, absolutely.
So going back to Iceland, I wanted to ask you, because we, living in Europe, we understand the differences between, generally speaking, the South, the East, the North, the Scandinavian countries. And I wanted to ask you, is it true that the Scandinavian countries are a bit more reserved? And if so, how does the character of the people influence the composition, your way of thinking about music? Does it influence it anyway? And if so, in what ways would you say it has impacted your way of thinking?
I'm not sure if they are more reserved. This is hard for me to. I don't know if that's true, and I think also these are such good speculations, but it's quite impossible for me to answer because I've never lived in a different body or lived a different experience, so I cannot really. I have nothing to compare to. But I, of course, have studied in 3 very different places, and this has been extremely different. Even Denmark and Iceland are extremely different when it comes to educational approach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it has been quite important to, and I feel very lucky to have been able to go to these different places because it has taught me so much to meet the different musical tradition in each place. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a question. What do you think about, let's say, especially scales? Because when it comes to, for example, piano, we've got this 12 note scale. But there are unlimited number. Like when we are on the violin, you can put your finger in, let's say, in unlimited number of places. So we are not allowed only to play major, minor scales and chromatics, but also some others. Because I'm struggling, like, for 100 years, especially in Europe, we developed that system when we've got only 12 notes, and what is beyond that? What should be next, or when should we go? For example,
That's a difficult question, actually. Where are we
for
going?
example, in last few months, there was a concert in Warsaw where Leszek Możdżer showed 10 piano which got 10 keys in 1 octave. It was a modified normal piano, but it was not temporary, not piano which got. It was equal tempo, but not square 2 to 12, but 2 to 10. So it was a different square. They were multiplying the frequency of that keys. So not complicated. What's your point of that? What's your opinion of that? What are you thinking about the whole aspect of the material of sound in?
I think scales are difficult, and I try not to think so much within them. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think I approach so much from a scale. It's more like the way I deal with it personally is that as you have heard now, that I have an idea of a landscape, and often this is very monotonous even, and within one tone there are so many frequencies also on the piano inside the piano. The strings themselves have so many possibilities, harmonic possibilities, and this I think is a great advantage. So the piano is so much more than a keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but when it comes to overtones, it's it's the same. But my question was to the frequency of the sound. Like we can get to pianos, like it will be probably on Moore's concert for 2 pianos. One will be on 40/40, and the second one 40, 27. Yeah. So, but we got 2 pianos, and I was thinking that maybe it's because the popularity of the instruments that was developed years ago, like when someone would develop, then people are developing new instruments or even using just normal things, but when someone would develop instruments, for example, keyboard instruments that would probably got 60 keys in 1 octave, it will be just individual. It wouldn't, but it's the point to grow the popularity of that instrument. It's a kind of philosophical, maybe discussion question. But I'm struggling that we've been teaching from the young ages. I'm a pianist, so I'm talking from the pianist perspective. I was doing experiments. I was on computer creating scales, a 7-tone scale, 10 or more, and whole time on each time when I was hearing that subconsciously, I was trying to put each of that frequency to the 12-tone scale.
But in your ear, like subconsciously?
Microphone.
Yeah, in my ear, I was automatically connecting that frequency with that I was used to, and I don't know if you get what you think about that, but is there a way to escape from that somehow?
Yeah, or
In your
maybe you should rather, because there seems to be a fear of this, that it is this way. Maybe you should try to embrace it and see what comes from it. Because I think there are so many possibilities within what exists that maybe the struggle, I see how it's interesting, and I understand the frustration point of it. I remember myself when I was very frustrated when I was younger that we were really stuck in the time format with no matter what we would do. As like a composition starts and it ends. Also, if it's an installation, it will end at some point, and there is like an A-B form really to many things where we would maybe want them to be a circular format or something like this. And we sometimes have these dreams but are actually stuck in something individually ending if we always look at every aspect of the universe as a single individual thing and not a part of a different organism where people come and go or plants grow and die and so on and so forth. And I think that it's when you talk about this, it reminded me of something my teacher in Iceland said at some point when we were having this sort of discussion, not about the piano, but something compositional. And he said to me, just remember, Bára, that simplicity is the best, but it is also the hardest. It is the most complex to approach. So I hope that you can go further into these thoughts, but also that you keep in mind that there are other possibilities within what exists.
Not to try to develop something new or just like KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. In some cases, not to overcomplicate some things. Yes?
You need to go with your intuition, to allow yourself.
Microphone, Julia.
No, my thought that I had regarding your reflections are that maybe not keeping it simple, because I understand that's what you understood from Bára's explanation, but allowing yourself to go intuitively, even if it sometimes leads you back to what you already know, but sometimes you'll get out of it. Sometimes you'll learn something that's outside of it. You will like it. You will like the taste of it, the smell of it. Maybe, of course, going a bit further with the metaphor, but just allow yourself to instinctively look for what resonates within you. I think that could be.
Yeah, and I think also, I don't know how I can be clear about this, but I feel that it's quite important that you experience yourself in a sort of flow. And sometimes I think that, and I feel that it's important for art and just for everything in our life, that it is sort of flowing and not stuttering. And I feel that as soon as we lose ourselves, because it's healthy, it's very healthy to think in this way, to think, what if it was like this? Is this, should we leave this and create a new future from this? But in the overall, if you look at the whole universe, it's such a tiny thing, sort of. and I think I don't want to. I'm not saying this to make fun of. I feel that this is important too. What you're saying. I think it's often that we don't see something that is right in front of us when we start thinking about technical aspects of how they could be different, and I feel that we sometimes can lose flow in this way, but I can only speak for myself, of course.
Because regarding this, I wanted to jump off of what you said about the flow and what you mentioned earlier, because that is something that I have struggled with. Perceiving music not as linear, not just as a time lapse of one thing leading to another in a linear way, but thinking of music in a three-dimensional way. How do I get there? I'm trying, because I have it in my head, how can you transcribe it into an existing piece, into a score, so that I can maintain that three-dimensionality? I don't know if you understand my question. I'm trying to.
I do. I think it is very important that you are not blind, and that you really observe the thoughts that come up on the way. So really, when you are in this process where you're struggling, and there are some thoughts that are making the struggle, and we often don't recognize them. So please, I think we should all try to do our best to acknowledge our thoughts that are coming up. These are often thoughts that are getting in our way, and they're stopping us like a straight transcription or however you want to describe the process. Yeah, of course there are filters to everything. There is, an idea cannot be materialistically placed on a paper. There is a certain process of everything, but everything that you feel is creating a altering experience is something that you have to look at, and you have to acknowledge it, and you maybe write down or think, am I judging this thought? Is it like what comes away, and what do I start thinking? What do I start feeling when this thought comes up? Because it is it's I would say quite important to be aware of one's own pattern. Because if we are oblivious, or if we are ignorant to our own pattern, this can really get in our way.
That's very interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes.
Following up, I'm sorry if I'm taking too much time.
Go on.
I really, really enjoyed your way of thinking, and I'm trying to dig more into that, because that resonates with what I'm looking for in developing my own way of thinking about composition and composing. So when you have said idea, said 3D space, those planets that you described, that sounds very interesting. How do you identify the pitches? Because at the end of the day, you have to assign, not always, because there are techniques that don't require that, but very oftentimes you have to assign a pitch to certain instruments. How do you identify that? How are you sure? How do you feel? What's your process of choosing the pitches, after all, that you write down in the score?
I think, first of all, I try to think of what is really the texture here, and then I try to find something, which dynamics am I looking for, and so on, and where. Then you have to find, how is that for the flute? Is it the bottom note? What feeling does that create? It's a totally different thing from mid-register. And when you first of all, I try to think like this, and sometimes then I have some sort of slow chordal or idea of some chord or tone movement. Mostly it should not be so audible somehow, but that there is an ever-going movement. This I am personally interested in. But first of all, I think of the characteristics of the instruments and what a certain pitch will. So I know what I want, what characteristics I want, and then I know where that is in the register of that instrument. And this is also why I'm very interested in writing for 9 flutes, and soon I will be premiering a piece for hopefully 60 flutes next May. And this is very interesting, because then you have like a really like literal organism where everything comes from the same.
Yes, I understand. You explained it very, very clearly. That's, because you come from the place of thinking about the texture, the timbre, and then in what register of the instrument that will work, and then not even it's about the pitch, but about the movement of said note that you... Yes,
exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I also found this very interesting that you put like the same group of instruments and you keep them together, but they're creating amazing sounds, like 9 flutes, 5 flutes together, and sometimes you can't even recognize that this is flute, and this is unbelievable, wonderful. And talking about the future, when we can hear your music, what's going to be next, what the new year is going to bring for you as a composer and also for a double bass player as a musician?
Well, mainly I'm working on a new piece for Riot Ensemble that we heard yesterday perform Animals of Your Pasture. So I'm writing a 50-minute piece for them right now to be premiered in Huddersfield in November.
This year?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huge work.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Yes, fantastic. So if we still have a question? Or
maybe I have something to add also, because we were talking about this a process, a way of thinking, and I think it's also okay, because often I feel myself that I should always be writing, always be working, but a lot of this time is just digesting. So most of the time I think, for example, with Vittir, this was a piece I had planned for 2.5 years, 3 years. I had it in my mind. I had decided everything. I wrote it down in a matter of weeks because I had decided everything. And I felt that I couldn't start writing it before everything was settled. Because then I felt if I would start before, I felt that I would lose some sort of overall focus. So I think it's very important. Of course, this is not possible at all, maybe most of the time even, but that we, like, if we are in the position to allow ourselves to take time to digest our ideas, and that working does not necessarily mean and typesetting, and so that it's also a process of thoughts and thinking and allowing yourself to do that.
Yes, great. Thank you for this. We have such a fruitful meeting, really philosophical. Okay, one more question. Yeah.
Yes, I have familiarized myself with some of your pieces, but I'm not sure. Have you written anything with a voice that would have a strict libretto and it would have a story, or not? I mean, I'm sorry, I have not familiarized myself with your the entirety of your works.
Yeah, I have one chamber opera, which is very, very much just text and singing, very detailed, and it has not been performed, and I don't think it will be, because it was cancelled during COVID, and now I'm not really. Yeah, I don't think I want it to be performed, to be honest. And I've written several pieces for voice also, and now this year I did a production with Ben Riepe, a German choreographer and director, where we made a vocal piece. So we were dancers and singers were combined together in one group, everybody doing movement and dance, and there's a narrative. So it was. everybody was singing and using their voice as well. So that was also, maybe a more abstract, no, there was not a libretto in that sense, but yeah.
Because my question was to follow up. How does the libretto and the soundscape come up in your mind? Does it appear one and then the other? Does the music complement the libretto? Do they appear in your mind coherently? Have you written even the libretto? Because maybe it was a libretto that you chose that was already existing.
I mean, for this chamber opera, I wrote the libretto myself. But I have written vocal music for, from poems. And then these are poems that I myself have chosen. So it's something that speaks to me and gives me some sort of inspiration.
So what's the relation between the music and the text? How do you combine these two worlds? Because that is a challenge for me at the moment.
Yeah, this is difficult. Yeah. I don't know how to answer. Yeah.
Don't worry about it. It's probably intuitive. It's hard to just come up with an answer.
Yeah, I think it's just when you see a text, it can give you or cannot give you some quite musical ideas. And then I just tried to go for that. Yeah.
Okay, so I feel now like we really made a röntgen to our composer, almost. But it's such a fruitful meeting. Thank you for this and all of these questions that you had to our wonderful composer today. And it looks really very promising if we're talking about this afternoon workshop. Because Bára is not leaving us already, and she's staying with us. And in the afternoon, we're gonna still have a wonderful meeting dedicated to the young composers. So see you at 3:00 here in the same place. Please join us. The workshop is open, so not only for the participants who are gonna be working with Bára. I'm really curious about this. And thank you for this wonderful meeting and all of these questions. And I think now even I feel like, I have a longer list of questions, but the questions are about the music, philosophy, our world. And also I think that sometimes in this landscape, honestly, you're creating a vision which has this ecological sense to me, because it's not so obvious. Maybe in this music, we can find this vision of beautiful landscape. It's unconventional beauty also, but like birds flying over the trash. And for the camera, it's beautiful, but somehow it's also a vision of disaster. So your music is also like SOS to the world. Look, this is our landscape, and where are we going to? This is the question. Not only in sounds, but from the human side of being. So thank you so much for this wonderful meeting. I think that we're really going to be searching for your music and looking for more in the future. Thank you for that.
Thank you.